So they sent someone all the way to the US to get this like $40,000 med that they had to give me. Like, I thought I died. In this video, I'm going to share some of my stories about chemotherapy, how it works, why I lose my hair, why I feel so awful. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to learn about it. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I got some crazy stories I want to share. I hope you guys enjoy the video. In a sense, chemotherapy kind of feels like you're in jail. At the beginning of the week, you get the injection. When you get the injection, you don't necessarily feel it right away. And you start to feel progressively worse over the week. And then you're at this point where you're so weak where you can barely lift your arms. You're throwing up constantly, your hair's starting to fall out. You're just in this awful state of mind. Throughout the next couple days, as you begin to start feeling a little better and better, and then you start the whole cycle all over again. The reason chemotherapy feels so harsh is because they're essentially pumping poison into your body. The poison is there to attack the cancer cells. Chemotherapy doesn't know the difference between cancer cells and good cells, and that's why I lose my hair, because it kills the rapid growth cells. The very first time I got chemotherapy was probably one of the toughest times. I was surrounded by friends when I got the actual injection, but I didn't begin to feel the effects until the day after. I remember the day I woke up after I got the injection. It was probably one of the worst days ever. I could barely open my eyelids. I couldn't lift my arm up in the air. It was just way too weak. Going to the bathroom was like a complete different story. I could not waddle over there in time. So I needed help. I had to get multiple people to like lift me up, waddle me over to the bathroom. And when I finally got there, I was like sitting there for hours because I was too lazy to get back up. Was that like TMI? One of the worst side effects from the chemotherapy was probably the nausea. Even the slightest smell would set me off and cause me to throw up just because it felt so pungent to me at the time. The reason chemotherapy takes so long is because they have to try to get rid of every last cell. Because if one cell is left behind, then that last cell can start multiplying, and the next thing you know, your cancer's back. As I said earlier, chemotherapy was one of, if not the hardest thing I had to go through in my life. And because of that, I got some crazy stories that came along with it. So stay tuned and I'll dive into those. So as I said, chemotherapy drifts out of your system as the week goes on. So before they give me the next dose of chemotherapy, they have to make sure that a certain amount of the chemotherapy from the previous week has already left the system. So when they give me the next dose, I don't overdose on the chemotherapy. But there was this one time where I technically overdosed on the chemotherapy. And before you guys get scared, it was not the hospital's fault. It was my own body's fault. My body failed to get rid of the excess chemotherapy from the previous week, resulting in me getting very sick. So none of the doctors knew why the chemotherapy wasn't leaving my system, but they did know what to do. They knew that I had way too much chemotherapy in my system. They had to do something about it. They knew a fix. And that fix, well, it was a little bit complicated. So they had to send someone all the way to the US to get this med. And take this med, it was $40,000. And not just $40,000, but $40,000 for 1 milligram. So the doctor got the med and he was driving as fast as he could to get to the hospital to give me the med in time. And they gave it to me. And next thing you know, I was good. But if they didn't give that to me, I would have overdosed from the chemotherapy. In this next story, I literally thought I died. Okay, hear me out. It's a little weirder than it originally sounds, alright? So this was around the time I first started chemotherapy, and I was on a lot of new drugs because, you know, we were kind of testing everything out, seeing what could help with my nausea, what could help with pain. One of the meds, it made me feel super loopy, and it gave me really vivid dreams. But the catch was, while I was dreaming, whatever happened in the dream also happened in real life. For example, if in the dream I was ordering pizza, my parents would hear me yelling out, I want peppers, I want barbecue sauce, and I want pepperoni. Like, I was like super whack, bro, and I was like flailing my arms everywhere. Yeah, so my parents would look over, they see me flailing my arms in my sleep, and they know I was having a lit time. Like, they knew I was having fun in my dream, you know? There was one very awkward time. But let's ignore that. I had a dream where I went swimming, dove underwater, and I held my breath. But I held my breath in real life too. As you can see, that might be an issue. So I was swimming around, but in real life, I was just like, that's all I did. I was holding my breath. And I was having a fun time in the dream, you know, swimming with dolphins, swimming with sharks. I looked like Aquaman. I felt like Aquaman. And I got to the point where I was about to pass out from oxygen loss. You know, I knew I was in a dream, but I didn't know I was actually holding my breath. And it was weird. Like, in the dream, I felt like I was drowning, but I didn't really pay attention to it because I knew I was dreaming. So I got to the point where in the dream, I died. And I kind of like sunk and like I fell into lava, so it felt like I was in hell. Next thing you know, I wake up and like I gasp for air, like I'm like and like I'm like looking at myself, like my arms are tingling, I can't feel anything. I look around the room, nobody's there, and I'm like, oh my god, I died. I'm in heaven. What do I, oh my god, I'm dead. What, I went out in a dream? Like what, bro? Like I thought I died. My dad happened to be on a walk at the time, so that's why the room was empty, and that's why I thought, you know, I was dead, because there was nobody else in the room with me. I thought I was in heaven or something. I thought I was in purgatory, some next level stuff. So I start freaking out. I'm like crying, I'm like gasping for air, like my heart's beating fast. So I sprint into the hallway, dragging the IV port by my chest. Like that's crazy. Like, if you don't know what an IV port is, it's basically the needle they stick into your chest to give you medication. And I sprint into the hallway, once again dragging the IV port by my chest, and I look around and I'm like, help, I'm dead. And like, I can't really see anybody. And then like I see this one nurse standing across the room, and she's just like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, help, I'm dead, like I'm dead, man. And then she's just like, confused, so she slowly starts walking towards me, and I'm like, help, come here, and then she's just like, what? Like she's like confused, you know. She starts sprinting towards me because she sees like I'm freaking out, and like I bring her into my room. I start pointing at my empty bed. I'm like, help, I'm dead. She's just like, what are you talking about? Like in her mind, she maybe thinks that like my dad is like on the ground behind the bed, passed out or something. So she's like looking around, she's like, there's nobody here. And I'm like, I'm dead. I'm like freaking out. She gets me to sit down. She takes my heart rate, she takes my blood pressure, and she kind of calms me down. And all the nurses around me, like there's like 20 nurses surrounding me at this point, and I'm like, well, this is awkward. Looks like I'm alive. My dad walks in, he's like, what the hell happened when I was gone? You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, I went to hell and back, you know? Like, it was like scary. That was like a crazy story. Those are just some of my experiences with chemotherapy. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for staying till the end. If you want to hear more stories, I've got tons of more stories to tell. Comment down below what type of stuff you want to hear. There's so many more stories I want to tell you guys in the future. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing. And if you really like this video, please drop a like down below. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.